Welcome to Rock, Shovels, and Manuscripts. My name is Steve Shermett. We're doing biblical archaeology throughout these series, more or less. I took a trip to Jerusalem recently. It's not my first, but I haven't been a gazillion times like a lot of people have. I still find the place new and fresh and fascinating. And with modern technology and the way cell phone cameras are, I just decided I'd take a bunch of footage to share with you and walk you through the footage. I've got, over the next several weeks, lots of pictures and lots of video. And as I'm walking the streets of Jerusalem, I'm doing a little bit of talking, but I'll kind of, for the most part, put that on mute and talk you through it now. So let me bring up my first video that I want to share with you. And what you see in front of you right now is entrance to the Temple Mount. But this is not one most people know about. This is in the Arab part of town. Only Arabs can get through on this way. And that sign that I showed you, that I kind of zoomed up on a second ago, it was the, it says this is the place for the Waqf, W-A-Q-F. Now I'm going to pause it right there for a second. That entrance and that parking lot are for the Temple Mount authorities. Now, the Temple Mount, I don't want to say it's international, because it's really not. Israel technically owns and controls the Temple Mount, but they gave the running and the management and the authority of the Temple Mount to the Jordanian government after the Six-Day War. So even though they technically own it, it's the Jordanian government that runs it. And the Waqf is their Temple Mount authority. This is their parking lot. That was the entrance to the Temple Mount. Most people don't see it. One of the things that's so fascinating about it, though, is I showed you a view facing it. Directly behind me is one of the most popular tourist sites called the Church of St. Anne. As the camera panned around, and I froze it right here for you to see, you can see one of the streets of Jerusalem, and I'm going to hit the play button, and you can see more of what I saw. That's the entrance there to the Church of St. Anne. This is a popular tourist site because it's a Crusader-aged church. Now, we're going to walk in there with camera, and I'm going to show you what it looks like in there in just a moment. The Crusader-aged church makes it about 1,000 years old, so it's one of the oldest churches in the world, definitely one of the oldest, if not the oldest, in Jerusalem. And it's amazing because you go in there and you look at the church, and it could have been built 20 years ago. I mean, it looks, I don't want to say new in the sense of modern, but it looks new in the sense of the stones and the concrete work. It just looks like, you know, it could have been done in recent times. So the first image, we were looking at the parking lot in the Temple Mount entrance. Then I panned to my right to immediately behind me, and you saw the entrance to the Church of St. Anne. And I told you it was popular because it's one of the oldest churches, and it's a Crusader-aged church. But it's also popular because within that compound are the pools of Bethesda. Now, the Pool of Bethesda is mentioned in the New Testament. The Pool of Bethesda was thought by many to be a myth or a fable because of the story that happened there with Jesus. You know, there's so many people that doubt the truth of the Bible, and I wish they'd stop doing that. We know these things were true. So anyway, archaeologists finally found the pools, and they said, okay, so the pools did exist, but we still don't believe about the miracle that happened there. Well, whatever. We believe the miracle that happened there. So it's the Church of St. Anne, but it's the archaeological side of the pools of Bethesda. And I'm going to take you there. I've got some good footage of that. I'm going to take you there. But before I do take you there, I want to read to you from the New Testament what it says happened at the pools of Bethesda. So I'm in John chapter 5, and here's what it says. After this, there was a feast of the Jews, and Jesus went up to Jerusalem. Now there is in Jerusalem, by the sheep gate, a pool, which is called in Hebrew Bethesda, having 5 porches. And in these, that is, in these porches, lay a great multitude of sick people, blind, lame, paralyzed, waiting for the moving of the water. Now, I'm going to take a pause there in my reading, just to talk to you a little bit about what I know. Right next to the pools of Bethesda was a Roman hospital. So it says, by these pools laid a bunch of sick people. Why weren't they in the Roman hospital? And by the way, Roman hospitals were pretty good. They were modern and effective, and some of their remedies and cures we use to this very day. So it's not like the people were avoiding the hospital because the hospital was no good. There were two reasons the people might have been avoiding the hospital. One, they had such a disease that the hospital couldn't help, which is quite possible. Or two, what I think, is these people wouldn't step foot in that hospital. Because Roman hospitals were also temples to false gods, and you made offerings to these gods. And these were probably Jewish folk, and they would never step into that hospital. So here they were sick, they needed help. Right next to the hospital was this pool of healing, supposedly. Now I'm in chapter 5, verse 4. For an angel went down at a certain time into the pool and stirred up the water. Then whoever stepped in first, after the stirring of the water, was made well of whatever disease he had. All right, we're going to stop again. Did this really happen? John is recording it as if it were fact. Was it really just a legend and these people were hoping that if they get in the water, they would get cured? Well, we could say it could go either way, because in the Bible, angels have been used to do miraculous and amazing things. So the possibility of an angel going to this water and resulting in people getting cured is not beyond the realm of possibility. Heck, some of the apostles, I think it was Peter, maybe it was Paul, they'd walk around so that people could fall under their shadow, and those who went under the shadow got healed. I don't think it was the shadow that did the healing. It was the faith that did the healing in the name of Yeshua. So it's possible that this really happened, or it's just possible that John's telling you what the people believed would happen, and it was just their superstition. Could go either way. Verse 6. Now, when Yeshua saw him lying there and knew that he had already been in that condition a long time, he said to him, "Do you want to be made well?" And it says that this sick guy was there for 38 years. Do you want to be made well? Obviously, it's a rhetorical question. Of course he wants to be made well. But he's engaging him in a conversation and soliciting a response from this man. Verse 7, the sick man answered, "Sir, I have no man to put me into the pool when the water is stirred up. But while I'm coming, another steps down before me." So he's paralyzed. He's got an infirmity that keeps him from fully rushing into the water at the right time. He slowly works his way there. But it's too late. Every time he gets there, somebody got there in front of him. He's been sick for 38 years. Maybe he's been doing this for 38 years, the poor guy. So Yeshua says to him, and if you're new with us, Yeshua is the Hebrew name for Jesus. Jesus said to him, "Rise, take up your bed, and walk." And immediately the man was made well. He took up his bed and he walked. And that day was the Sabbath. Verse 10. The Judeans, or the Jews, therefore said to him. Now, when it says the Jews, they were all Jews. The apostles were Jews, Jesus was Jews, everybody was Jewish. So when it specifically uses that phrase, the Jews, it's usually talking about the religious authorities. I prefer to use the phrase the Judeans, that way nobody gets confused. So the Judeans therefore said to him who was cured, "It's the Sabbath. It's not lawful for you to carry your bed. It's against our laws and our customs for you to carry a bed on the Sabbath." Here's his response, verse 11. "He who made me well said to me, 'Take up your bed and walk.' Then they asked him, 'Who is the man who said to you, 'Take up your bed and walk'?" Notice they didn't say, "Who's the man who made you well?" Their priorities are all messed up. Their mind is in the wrong place. They loved law over love, where they should have held love over law. Who said to you, "Take up your bed and walk"? Who told you you could break the Sabbath? Now, wow, you were healed? How did that happen? Who did that? Heck with the bed, tell me more. Their hearts weren't in the right place. Verse 13, but the one who was healed did not know who it was, for Yeshua had withdrawn, a multitude being in that place. Yeshua often taught and did miracles in crowds, but he also liked to just get away from it all. He didn't know it was Yeshua. He never met Yeshua. He just knew some guy told him to take up his bed, and he did what the guy said, and he was well. So when the authority said, "Who told you this?" he said, "I don't know, some guy." It's pretty funny. Verse 14. Afterward, Yeshua found him in the temple, and he said to him, "See, you've been made well. Sin no more, or a worse thing will come upon you." Now, the Bible teaches elsewhere that sin at times has the consequence of making us sick. We even saw it amongst believers who are taking communion in a godless way, and many, the scripture says, were made sick, and even some died. So sometimes sin can result in sickness. It could be a supernatural sickness, like happened to the people who took communion in a godless fashion, or it could be the natural consequence of sin. For example, sleeping around, you might get AIDS or some other STD. It's a natural consequence of your sin. You might be a glutton and get heart disease. Natural consequence of your sin. On the flip side, sometimes we get sick and it has nothing to do with sin, at least not our sin. It might go back to somebody else's sin, maybe even Adam and Eve's sin, because all sickness is eventually a consequence of the fallen world in which we live that Adam and Eve brought us into. You might get cancer, and it might have nothing to do with sin in your life. You might not have done anything wrong. You just live in a fallen world and you got sick. So sometimes sickness is a consequence of sin, and repenting of the sin, going before the elders, being anointed and prayed over, the sin will be forgiven and the sickness will go away. Some sicknesses, you're just stuck with them. You can pray and be healed. God often does that, but sometimes he doesn't. So I want you to make sure you don't think that just because you're sick, it's because of sin. But you should examine yourself to see if maybe something's going on in your life. All right. He tells him, don't sin anymore or something worse may come upon you. And the implication is this was a consequence of his sin. Verse 15. The man departed and told the Judeans that it was Yeshua who made him well. They were not big fans of Jesus, which is a shame. Obviously, he's the man of God. He was the man of the hour. He was doing the miracles. Doesn't it just blow your mind? Don't you think that if you were there and somebody did this amazing miracle, you'd want to meet him? And if he believed something a little different than you, and I say a little different because he wasn't from some different religious background. He was a faithful Jew teaching faithful Jews. But their perspective of Judaism was wrong, and he was trying to correct them. But in their arrogance, not everybody, but these leaders, these Judeans, in their arrogance, they wanted to reject him and discount him. Yet he was doing miracles. Just shows you their heart wasn't right with God. They were hypocrites. They weren't good. We don't have to be that way. Listen, we'll talk more about Bethesda when we get back after the break. I'll see you then.
GLC invites you to visit us on our Facebook page at facebook.com/GLCTV. Here you can stay in touch with all of the latest GLC news along with daily scriptural inspirations, current specials in our bookstore, links to our newest shows, and online media, plus articles from trusted sources. Feel free to drop us a message or a question by posting to our page. Please help us out and like our page by clicking on the thumbs up button. Don't delay, drop by the GLC Facebook page at facebook.com/GLCTV. We want to interact with you today.
Welcome back to Rock, Shovels, and Manuscripts. My name is Steve Shermett, and we've been looking at the Pool of Bethesda in Jerusalem. I told you about it. I showed you the entrance to the courtyard of St. Anne's Church, but I've not yet shown you the pools. So we're going to walk our way through the courtyard of St. Anne's Church. Let me pull up a video for you. Take a look. I've got it here for you now. So this is looking at the courtyard. It's very idyllic. It's a garden. It's a quiet area. You see that they've done very well with the landscaping. And I'm just going to give you a panorama of what the courtyard of the church looks like. I'm standing right by the entrance there. And as I bring up this next video, I've walked forward through that courtyard to a little gate, a wall. And I've stood in front of the gate, and I pulled out my camera, my phone, and we're going to be looking down into the archaeological site of the pools of Bethesda. Let's take a look. All right, so I'm leaning over the gate there, and I'm giving you somewhat of a panoramic view here of the pools. Why are they below ground? Well, over years, Jerusalem has been built up. And And so the Jerusalem that you see today, for the most part, at least a big portion of it, is over the buried Jerusalem. So the pools of Bethesda, as you can see, go down 20, 30, 40 feet, whatever it is. And this is the entire complex. Those pools were huge. There were 2 of them. They were bigger than Olympic size. A lot of people hung out there. There was a lot of water. And we're right next door to the top of the Temple Mount. All right, this next video, I've gone closer. I've gone inside, and I'm giving you a view. Yes, that is snow. I was there after one of their big snowstorms. Most of it had melted, but not all of it. And I'm giving you an idea of the scope and size of the pool here. I wanted you to see the height of these walls from what then would have been ground level. And you couldn't be there with me, but this is get you as close as you can possibly get. Now that footage is pretty exciting, but I've got some more. Let's take a look. I'm going to get you closer and closer. Now during this trip, this is the closest I've ever been. Take a look at your screen. These are the archways, and even though I told you we're at ground level, that archway is shorter than a man's head height. So I have to think they didn't finish excavating, that you could go lower still. I wanted you to get a close-up of what the walls look like. Some of that you can see has been repaired and rebuilt, but some of this stone is original. So that's what the Pool of Bethesda looked like from inside today, from an archaeological perspective. While I was there, I actually filmed a clip for you. So I'm going to turn up the volume and zoom the camera in. A buddy took a picture of me, a video clip of me, and I'm just going to let it play so you can see what I said while I was there. I'm standing in the complex of the Pool of Bethesda, where there was a lame man waiting for the waters to bubble before Yeshua came. And then Yeshua came, and Yeshua healed him. This is what that area looked like. Now, I told you that archway, I said, was shorter than a man's height. You can see me standing there. I'm taller than the archway. So obviously, they could keep digging and find more. But this is all they've gotten so far. This was just a few months ago that I was there. Now, in addition to the pools of Bethesda, there are some cisterns that they discovered. I'm not exactly sure the date of those cisterns. Might go back to the days of the Crusaders. I don't really know. But I wanted to show you those cisterns. So I'm going to pull up the video clip. There's a set of stairs walking down to the cisterns, as you can see right there in front of you. And I'm taking my video camera, and I'm walking down these stairs, giving you an idea of the depth and the height and the darkness. Well, speaking of darkness, I realized I couldn't film anymore because I was running out of light. So I paused my camera, turned on the camera's light, which isn't that powerful, but it still will give us enough so you can have an idea of what it looks like. So let me bring you to the next clip where I have my camera light on and I walk down towards the water level there. And it was a little creepy, I'm not going to lie. I didn't know what was down there. I had never been down there before. I don't know what kind of monsters are hiding down there. And as you walk down these stairs, eventually the stairs get submerged in water. So the water height, sometimes it's higher, sometimes it's lower. And it was cold, it was dark, it was lonely. I didn't spend a lot of time in there. I wanted to get on out of there. So we started the episode with me facing the Temple Mount. I turned my camera, showed you the street of Jerusalem, turned it again, showed you the entrance to the courtyard of the Church of St. Anne. We walked in, and I showed you the pools of Bethesda. And I read to you about the story of the Pool of Bethesda where Jesus, Yeshua, healed a paralyzed man. We went into the Pool of Bethesda, the archaeological dig, and I showed you what the stones looked like, the height, the water, the cisterns anyway. Now, what I did is I left the Court of St. Anne, and I took a left. Walked down, I don't know, just a few yards, not very far, a very short walk, and I turned right. What you're going to be looking at now is the eastern wall of the old city. And I'm walking the length of the eastern wall, and I'll show you snippets of what you see along the eastern wall. So here we go. Let's take a look. Now, what you're seeing is a Muslim cemetery. You see some Arabic graffiti on the right there, and yes, it's jerking up and down because I'm walking. But this is just a graveyard, and it's significant for a couple of reasons. But first, let me just give you an idea of what it looks like. And off to the left is the Mount of Olives. That's what you're seeing in the background there. That's a very famous church that sits right next to the Garden of Gethsemane. So you're looking at the Mount of Olives, the area that's known as the Garden of Gethsemane, through the lens of a Muslim cemetery. And now I'm showing you the wall so you can see what the wall looks like. Notice, I'm going to pause it right there for a second. Notice you have a break in the wall, different style of stones, and a different part of the wall. Different ages, different types of stones. But the one I want to draw your attention to, on the left side of the screen, there is a stone with an embossment around it. And I'm showing you that now. I know what that stone is. Every stone that looks like that comes from the building project of King Herod. It comes from the 1st century during the days of Yeshua. Why is there only one stone there? Well, over the years, there has been war. The walls are broken down. A new conqueror comes in, rebuilds the walls. They take some of the stones that are there. Some of them are broken. They put in new stones. Other kingdoms come in. They make the wall bigger. They make it shorter. They make it taller. The walls are constantly changing. So what you're seeing here is at least one stone from the days of Yeshua. Other parts of the wall will have more stones from that day. This one seam probably means that the wall ended there for quite a time period, and then maybe the Ottomans or somebody built up a second wall or rebuilt the wall. All right, I'm going to hit the play button again and let you see the height of the wall and just a view of what this wall looks like. And see if you can see any more of those Herod stones while you're looking at it. Next best thing to being there. Now, I'm walking a little further east, but this next picture, this next video clip, is just to give you a little more time to see the wall, the seam, the type of stones, and this eastern view. And I'm going to walk there in just a moment. I just want you to see. I'm going to pause it. I'm zooming in. Right there where I zoomed in, this area right here, this is the Eastern Gate. Extremely famous for many reasons. The Eastern Gate of Jerusalem is mentioned a couple times in the Bible. Some think that this very gate, the one that I'm going to show you, that I'm going to get real close to you, is the gate that Jesus himself is going to march through when he returns to earth. It's quite conceivable. It's probably built on top of the gate that was there in the days of Yeshua himself. This gate is walled up. We'll talk more about that when we get back to the gate. Let's take a look at the footage. And you can see the wall in the cemetery. And I see I'm running short on time here. So let me pull up a closer view of the gate for you. The first thing you're going to see when I play this video clip is my back is to the gate facing the Mount of Olives. And I'm going to do a 360 so you can see the entire area exactly as I saw it. And I might pause the video here and there. The first thing you're going to see on your left is the church next to the Garden of Gethsemane. You see the Jewish cemetery, that dead-looking area there, as I pan right through the Kidron Valley over towards the Hinnom Valley, and Mount Zion, some people call that area. But I think here what I'm standing on is Mount Zion. Here's the Eastern Gate. I'm going to pause it so you can have a nice, good view at it. A view of it. I told you it was walled off. There's a legend that General Allenby, who was the British conquering general of this area back in his day, that they wanted to blow these gates open so he could march through them triumphantly. And the legend says that he said, no, only the Messiah is going to walk through these gates. And they left them walled up. Why were they walled up? The belief is that the Muslims didn't want to make it convenient for the Messiah to come through. And that's why they say they built a cemetery there, because no Jewish holy man would set foot on a cemetery. So the Jewish people wanted the Messiah to go through there. We'll just plant a cemetery in front of the gate so that'll never happen. I think it's kind of humorous, because when Messiah comes, the graves are going to open up and people are going to step out of those graves. All right. Let's continue the panorama. Pretty remarkable, isn't it? Now we're looking back to that area in just a moment where I actually entered and showed you this footage from the other side. Swinging back around, I'm going to pause it for a minute. That mountain you see right there is Mount Scopus. The Hebrew University is on top of that mountain, and it's well known, quite famous. And off to the right, behind these bricks and better, there is the Mount of Olives. So the Mount Scopus, Mount of Olives, they're kind of right next to each other. And off to the right, there's that cemetery again. It's interesting. Now that you've seen the Mount of Olives, what's your thought? My thought is, gee, Steve, it's a lot smaller than I thought it was. Shouldn't that be called the Hill of Olives? Yes, I think it should be. From my perspective, Israel only has one mountain. It's the mountain in the north. It's from which the waters that make the Jordan River flow from, and it borders Lebanon, maybe Syria, and Israel. It's Mount Hermon. That's the only true mountain. I mean, they get snow up there all the time. I think you can go skiing up there. That's a mountain. There are some, I guess, mini mountains, but they call these mountains, they're really hills. I've got so much more to share with you. We've got more episodes coming, and I'll give you other views of the cemetery of the Kidron Valley, which is mentioned in the scriptures. I'll give you some of the history of the area. We're going to actually journey on another episode just a little further east and south to David's palace, King David's palace, and the city of David. So I'll be lower down. I'll show you better footage of that graveyard and the Mount of Olives from another perspective, and I'll show you the wall that led up to King David's palace. You've got to tune back in to Rock, Shovels, and Manuscripts next time. I'll see you then. God bless. Bye-bye.
Order your copy of this program from the GLC bookstore by calling the numbers or visiting the website on your screen. Please include the program number when ordering.